AITA for snapping at my mother when she asked when I would finally kick out my daughter? I, 66F, am retired but kept very busy by caring for my mother, 85F, and my disabled husband, 64M. My mother does not live with us, she lives in an assisted living facility, where I visit her every few days to check up on her and see if she needs anything. During my latest visit, she brought up how I should finally kick out my daughter, 29F, let's call her C. Now for some context, yes, my daughter does indeed still live with me and my husband, for many factors including her rather fragile mental health, but what my mother does not understand is that, despite us being parent and child, we are not living in a parent and child kind of situation. We are roommates that just happen to also be family, because neither her nor my husband and I could afford places of our own in this economy. We are dependent on C just as much as she is dependent on us. C holds down a full-time job, which doesn't pay great, but not awfully either. She pays her fair share in rent, utilities, and groceries, does her fair share of chores and sometimes even takes over some of my chores when she feels that I need a break. I cook on weekdays when C has to work, but C has weekends off so she takes over cooking duties then. She has a savings account for emergencies, she pays for the family Netflix account, and even spends some of the fun money she has left over every month, which isn't much, on little treats for my husband and me, no matter how often I ask her not to waste what little money she has to enjoy life on us. So with all of that as background, my mother's comments made me pretty angry, because C does so much to not be a burden to my husband and me, despite me telling her that I love her and could never see her as a burden. I also fear my mother may have planted that thought in her head when I wasn't around. Meanwhile, all my mother seems to do is demand, demand, demand. She has nurses at her disposal in that assisted living facility, and people who do grocery runs for her. But she never uses these services and demands that I do everything for her instead. She demands all of my time, energy, and attention. I suspect she may want to push me to kick C out so she could move in with my husband and I and force me to be her full-time caretaker. I was already having a crappy day, so I just snapped and told her that C's living situation is none of her damn business. She started crying and asked why I would yell at her for just being concerned. So am I wrong for snapping at my mother? Update. I sat with my daughter for our Easter tradition of getting together as a family, and eating a big batch of my grandmother's pickled eggs. And while we ate, and made a huge mess which, if my grandma was to be believed, is essential to the egg's taste, I reminded C that I love her and that she will always be welcome with my husband and me. She seemed a bit confused by it suddenly coming up, but thanked me and told me she loved me too. When I asked if she had spoken to her grandmother lately, she said no, she hadn't spoken to my mother since my birthday. Today, I drove to visit my mother again and have a talk about what happened, and it went surprisingly well. I started out by apologizing for snapping at her like that. Regardless of my mental state, I should not have gone on the attack like that and I truly am sorry. I sadly am the type to bottle up my feelings instead of communicating them immediately, and it's something I know I need to work on. However, I also told my mother that I am not willing to talk about C's living situation with her, and asked her to use the facility's services a bit more in the future, instead of always relying on me, because I have a life of my own and a husband who also needs me, probably more than she does, but I didn't say that part out loud. She started crying again, asking why C and I hate her so much. She talked about how C never calls and only seems to acknowledge her existence when she absolutely has to, and has now also turned me against her. She asked if I was really so sure that C wouldn't eventually start ignoring me the way she is ignoring her. I was getting very impatient with her again, but I was prepared for it this time, and managed to stay calm and ask her to think back to her interactions with C over the past 5 years, and the many moments of her being rude or downright cruel to C. I even named some specific instances C has told me about, and to put herself in C's shoes. Would she want to spend any time with someone who treated her like that? I felt ridiculous talking to my 85-year-old mother like she is a 5-year-old child. But when I told her that we love her, but at times, we do not feel particularly loved by her, it seemed to actually get through to her. She stopped crying and told me that she didn't realize that her comments hurt my daughter so badly. In my mother's defense, C, like me, has the habit of bottling up her feelings in the moment and disengaging instead of communicating, unless she feels she can 100% predict the other person's reaction, so she most likely never told my mother that these comments hurt her, and just started distancing herself. My mother promised to use the facility's services more and in turn asked me if we could go out and do something fun every now and then. Her definition of fun is usually going to the casino, with a very strictly enforced budget, so we'll see about that. It doesn't sound terrible for some mother-daughter bonding time. I'm not sure how things will develop now, but I am hopeful. I will tell C what her grandmother and I talked about today, and see if she's maybe willing to give her the chance to make amends. I won't push her, though. Thank you again for all the helpful advice and encouragement.